Sagittarius is the mutable fire sign of the zodiac. It seeks to adventure and experience all the different facets life has to offer. In many ways, 2023 is right on brand with this sign. We have two major outer planets changing signs, bringing a whole new vibe to the atmosphere. These two are Saturn, the planet of hard work and commitment, and Pluto, the planet of change himself. As exciting as these changes might be, both Saturn and Pluto are heavyweight planets, even if, astronomically, the latter is smaller than our own moon. They ask us to walk the walk, not just dream and fantasize about what could be. Since these changes only happen later in the second quarter of 2023, we're blessed with some time to prepare and make adjustments early in the year. Sagittarius, along with all other mutable signs, want to pay the most attention to these early year opportunities, since Saturn will be a strong and very tangible force for your sign precisely. With that said, what does the first quarter have in store for Sagittarius? January gets us started with the tail end of the double retrograde of Mars and Mercury that started later in 2022. For Sagittarius, this was likely one of the toughest retrogrades of the year, with Mars transiting through your 7th house of romantic and business partnerships. There was likely a decrease in income as a result of this retrograde, which is not very pleasant, especially during the holidays. The good news is that these two won't continue to move backwards very long, with Mars moving forward again on the 11th and Mercury on January 18th. Still, even after the retrogradation period is all over, you should still expect a slow recovery period. If we're still keeping the Saturn transit in mind, from January to March is the time to get your finances in order before the adventure really starts. Sagittarius can tend towards spending a lot on exciting escapades, so you might want to postpone those for later in the year. Now that you know what you should focus on in the early year, it's time to get to the significant and life-changing astrological events. It's not an overstatement when astrologers emphasize Saturn changing signs. The planet is the one responsible for our challenges, and its main task is getting us to be mature enough to take them with confidence. If you're around 28 to 29, this is even more important, since the charges ahead are those that will allow you to own your status as an adult with unshakable certainty. On March 7th, Saturn will be entering your 4th house. This is the place where we find our family and home life, but also the very foundation we create our lives upon. With Saturn in this house for the next 2.5 years or so, you'll be asked some serious questions about stability and sustainability. Sagittarius, as a somewhat spiritual sign, wants to discover the ultimate truth about the meaning of life, and for that reason, you usually adhere to a belief system very early in life. This Saturn transit, however, is here to poke holes in how you view both the history of the world and your place in it, but also your heritage. These are the beliefs and ideologies that you might be carrying with you solely because your family and ancestors have been doing it for generations. Saturn here asks for a more individualized understanding of these topics, and for that reason, don't be surprised if you begin to feel somewhat distant from your family for the next little while. This distance is an excellent opportunity for you to understand what sort of legacy you want to leave for your lineage moving forward. Saturn is not the only one making big moves, though. Pluto, the planet of rebirth, recycling and depth, takes over Saturn's spot in your 3rd house, albeit temporarily. Pluto is all about the big picture. It usually stays in a sign for about 20 years, so the transformations it brings are gradual but powerful. This year is not quite the beginning of that cycle yet, but it's a very welcome preview of what's to come. From March 23rd to June 11th, Pluto will make an appearance in your 3rd house of communication, daily habits, prayers, siblings and close friends. The reason why it only stays there for a couple months and not 20 years is that it will retrograde back into your 2nd after June, pushing you to get your finances straight before this next chapter of your life starts. Now, during this brief preview, what can you expect? If we consider that Saturn is here to shake your foundation, Pluto comes in to push you to take your spirituality a bit more seriously. Traditionally, the 3rd house was called the place of the goddess. It's where our ancestors went to pray for the goddess moon, a daily and habitual process. This is why we also find the topic of siblings in this house, since churchgoers usually refer to one another as brothers and sisters. With that picture painted, you can expect a need for this fraternal and spiritual type of love to be much more present in your life than it was before. You'll be asked to learn to relate to these types of figures, and the divine, on a regular basis, not just in passing. But because this transit is not yet permanent, you don't have to push it too hard. Make use of the Saturn energies mentioned earlier to first figure out what is worth praying for in the first place, or if praying is even for you, that's also an option. 2023 is a rather spiritual year for Sagittarians all around the globe. You must be ready for your adventures to become less tangible and much more in the mind space. The enormous task of 2023 is figuring out who you are by looking at those around you, your family, siblings, and friends. An excellent question to meditate on is, what does my family say about me? The answers you come up might surprise you. Good luck, Sagittarius.